Hi, dear language learners. Thanks for checking back. Today, I invite you to join me on a radical declutter of what blocks us in our mindset on our path to fluency. So, I invite you to join me to learn about the 6 things that we need to absolutely let go of on our path to fluency. My aim is, as always, to have your journey to fluency in your new language, to have that as a much more enjoyable, efficient process to achieve it faster, and also to have you speak with unshakable confidence. And for those of you who join me for the first time, I'm Dr. Alex. I'm a social psychologist. I bring you the essence of social psychology to enable you to speak finally in that language that you study since years. So, the 6 things to let go of, this is actually about the mindset fluency connection. And why is this so important to know about that? Because what this does is it creates simplicity in your mind. Simplicity is important to learn anything. I will actually also in the future, I will do a video on the number one skill that you need to have in this world is the skill of learning how to learn. And the mindset is the basis for that. You need to be able to create simplicity and focus for whatever you're trying to learn. So in this case, the language. And what we're doing today is we're decluttering all those things that kind of clutter up, that crowd your mind with things that you don't need to become fluent. If you have watched my last video on Overwhelm, and by the way, thank you so much for all these great comments. I mean, it's just, this is so rewarding. As you know, I'm doing this, it's my passion project after years and years of language study to give back those learning that I learned. I don't say the hard way, but after years of studying languages, I want to share that with you so that you actually can have a far more enjoyable process, because I think the new era is all about sharing our experiences on this wonderful platform, YouTube, so that we can make our lives more enjoyable. I wish actually it's not a regret, but it's something that I wish I had already in my early years, in my 20s, a great language sharing, information sharing platform like YouTube, so that we can learn from each other and don't have to make all the same mistakes all over again, if you know what I mean. So, if you've watched that video on Overwhelm, you have seen that the more you add to your study, the more intensity you bring, the more perfectionism you bring to it, the more you will just create that huge mountain that you want to climb that makes you feel like, I will never do it. And that makes you have that imagination that it's a really complicated task, which is not true. So, what we need to do now to go back to the focus is we need to simplify. And this is why I do this video on decluttering your mind, because I want to get you out of that feeling of being stuck with a complicated thing. This is not the case. Oh, and by the way, also, I have now available the long announced study routine planner. Download your copy of it. As always, if you leave me a comment on your personal experience and on your tips that you want to share on this channel, so drop me a comment on what creates simplicity for you, I will give you until the end of this month a free copy of this study routine planner. It is 10 pages packed with the essentials that you need to create your perfect study routine and to make your language learning enjoyable. So, let's start with the 6 things to let go of in order to make your language learning quicker and faster. Faster in terms of, I always talk about the aim of speaking, of being fluent in the language. Number one is this belief we all used to have, I had it as well, is trying to sound like natives. It is a common trap to think that the quality of your speaking of the language depends on how much you sound like a native speaker. No. What you need to tell yourself is everyone has an accent. Everyone on this planet has an accent. This is his or her specific way of speaking a language. And depending on the number of years the person has already spoken in that language, that accent will sound more ingrained, more like this, more like that. It actually just is unique and individual. And according to the region where you live, it is like that. Then you go to another region, it's completely different. Have a look at Spanish. Spanish is spoken in 21 countries in the world. Compare, for example, Spanish in Argentina with Spanish of the south of Spain. What you will realize is you will feel like, oh my God, is this two different languages? They use different words. They use different sounds. I mean, you say yo me llamo or yo me llamo. It's complete different sounds, pronunciation. Then the intonation changes from country to country. Have a look on YouTube. Listen to different speakers of different countries. You will be amazed. Compare for French, for example, the French spoken in Canada with the French spoken in Belgium. Completely different. Compare the German in Switzerland to the German in the north of Germany. Nothing to do with each other. Nothing. It's completely different. And it doesn't even matter if you're a native speaker. In some regions, you will not understand because they pronounce it differently. They speak quicker, they speak slower, they use slang words. So accent is not something that defines whether you are good. You need to aim for speaking with clarity and with confidence. Of course, if you pronounce it in such a way that nobody understands you, that is something not to be looked for. But you need to acquire a way of speaking that you feel comfortable with, and that will be your personal way of speaking. Like I always tell my students as well, when I speak in my language lessons, doesn't matter if I'm a native speaker or not. I give Spanish lessons, for example. I don't sound like anyone in the north of Spain. I don't sound like anyone in Mexico. I don't sound like it's just my way of speaking. And I speak in such a way that I think my Spanish now is on an upper intermediate level, which is so good that I can be perfectly understood. And also that I can have a lovely conversation with somebody who speaks in that language. So that's the aim. And the aim is to enjoy doing that, to enjoy conversing with the other. The social psychology behind this is actually engaging with the other. So as long as you have a good conversation, that's the aim. It's not if you sound like somebody else. I mean, compared to the art of singing as well, the art of speaking is similar. Most famous singers have their individual style of singing. And this is the same of acquiring a new language. You need to speak with your individual style, with your vibe, with your how you sound in that language. If you have watched my previous video on different identities and feelings in a different language, this is, by the way, why polyglots feel and think in different ways in different languages, because every language comes with its sound, with its feeling, with your way of feeling in that language. And I have that myself. I prefer certain languages for certain types of situations as well. I don't know. Music for me is very much at the moment in French and Spanish. At the moment, I say it changes as well. But then certain types of music, I prefer to listen in German. Then I have certain types of music that I prefer to listen in English. It depends on the context. So that was number one. Just throw that overboard. This kind of, you need to sound like somebody. No, you need to speak with clarity. You need to speak with confidence, and you need to kind of work on your sound in the new language. What actually also helps is record yourself on your mobile phone when you speak, and then kind of listen to yourself. You realize how good you speak already. I always say that to my students. They all have such a good sound in their new language. They just need to do it more often to get comfortable with it. That's the missing part. Okay, number two is the overanalyzing of grammar. I used to do that a lot. I was like, I lost so much time. It's not losing time. Grammar is useful. I did a video as well, if you have watched that, on grammar. Grammar is a useful tool to drive home the structure and the logic behind a language, of course. But there's a huge but. We need to know how much time we spend with it, because there is a level of time you can spend with grammar that is far too much. I'm guilty of that. I used to spend hours overanalyzing why, let's take Spanish as an example, why you say estar and not ser for to be, and why is it that the past tense of ser, fui, yo me fui, is used as for to be and also to go. And then I kind of obsessed over figuring out what is the right answer to that question. And if you have the aim of fluency, it just doesn't help. Certain things we need to just acquire in terms of, okay, if I say we went to the cinema, I say nos fuimos al cinema, and it's the same as fuimos as for ser, fuimos muy felices. Okay, so it doesn't matter actually that it's the same. I actually had to come to terms with it myself, that there is no explanation, sorry, why it is like that. It is just like that. So we need to just speak it. That's it. So the art of knowing, okay, when does grammar serve me to explain to me, for example, how a future tense is formed, to understand, okay, if I know all verbs ending in this letter, then the future tense is formed like that. That is useful. But what is not useful is spending hours obsessing over a rule and then blocking yourself because you realize, oh, it's so difficult. And actually, it is not. It is something in our way of thinking about the language. And what we need to do on our way to fluency is think less about the language, but start thinking in the language and speaking it. So that is number two. Number three is, what do we associate with being seen as a good student of the language? And traditionally, this used to be measured as how many hours you spend. So many of my students come into class and say, I just didn't have time enough. I just can't find the right time. I don't progress because I didn't have enough time. So it's not the amount of time you spend. It is not the more hours you spend with studying the language that the more you will progress in your speaking. No. Consistency beats the amount of time. The consistent 5 minutes per day, this will actually help you far more than saying, oh, I didn't have the time to set aside 2 hours on the weekend. If you do that, yes, of course, that's brilliant. But what on the long run will allow you to speak faster and get that fluency vibe, that actually is the 5 minutes per day, repeating your one sentence per day that you really need for your daily life, and that you say in your daily life. I bring the example that I used in my previous videos. If you say something, I don't know, you go for a walk, you meet a neighbor, and you say something in your native language to that neighbor, try to think then, okay, what would I have said in my new language, and memorize that sentence. These minutes you spend memorizing that sentence, and if you do that on a daily basis, that will help you far more to get fluent than sitting there for 2 hours analyzing past tenses and irregular verbs of as many verbs that you can. No, it will not speed you up. It will just drag you down again and go back into overwhelm. So that is this kind of how we measure being a good language student. Measure it in consistency. Have I done my 5 minutes per day? That is a far better measure than measuring it in this kind of more hours. Have a look also on my website. I have now this study routine planner. Download your personal copy of it. You will actually find that this helps you to establish a routine of doing these 5 minutes per day. And let me know as always how you go with it. Also, drop me a comment in how you would go about adding more simplicity to your study routine. Okay, so now let's go on to the next. Number 4 is linked to that kind of what I just said, this being seen as good students by how many hours you put into it. It is hoarding resources. Just stop adding another resource to your language learning. I used to be guilty of that, of downloading all the possible apps on the planet, of actually buying lots of books, of going into many different resources for a language. That is good initially to explore. But then when you establish your study routine, you just need to focus on one thing. So, for example, I follow, I don't know, 5 different YouTube channels regularly in my new language. I do my 5 minutes per day of repeating my sentence, my daily sentence. I do a flashcard. And then I do this channel that I love to share with you, but then that's it. I need to focus. So initially, when you start with your new language, of course, it's good to do as many, to explore, but then go back to simplicity and focus on your personal study routine. What is bringing joy to you and not more? And then also have these boundaries of saying, I have my study routine in place. For the moment, I stay with that. Maybe later I will add another app, but not for the moment, because any layer you add, you will just add again complexity, and complexity doesn't bring you faster fluency. Okay, now this is number 5. This is also something coming straight out of social psychology. It is, you need to stop worrying about what other people think. Do your own thing. It's so important. When you learn a new thing, and this is linked to this essential skill, learning how to learn, you need to actually totally not worry what other people think, how you might sound, how you go about things. Don't worry about what dogmatic people think if they tell you no, but learning a language has to be like that. You need to at least do that. No, don't worry about that. Follow your intuition. What feels good to you? You need to have some lived experience every day in the new language. And if that feels good to you, if you feel, oh yes, if I repeat that sentence for the whole week and I can then memorize it because I link it to that experience, that's good. That's great. This is why my study routine planner that I have on my website actually focuses on, it gives you the elements that you need to put in place for you individually. Every human being is unique. So you need to find your unique style that blends nicely into your daily life. And that can bring you another element of your daily lived experience that brings joy to you. That's the aim of learning something new, like a wonderful new language. And now the last one is the one that actually took me a hard time to learn it. It's this playing it safe, staying in your comfort zone, waiting for the perfect moment, and saying to somebody who speaks to you in the new language, I don't speak it. Let's switch back to English. It's easier. You need to use every moment you can use to speak in the new language. If somebody offers you to speak already in the new language, use it. Say something. Say your greeting that you have learned. Say, hola, hola, ¿cómo estás? Que tengas un buen día. Say something. It is, every moment is the right one. Our life is now. It's not in the future. Well, of course, thinking of the future is important, but learning a language, you need to practice and speak every day. You need to stop pushing the bike next to you. You need to get on the bike, riding it. Make as many mistakes as possible and make as many experience or have as many experiences as possible in the new language, because in that sense, it becomes part of your life, and that's the aim. So these were the 6 things that you need to let go of in order to become a fluent speaker faster. Let me know, as always, your personal experiences, what adds simplicity to your study routine. Have a look at my study routine planner online. And as always, thanks for watching. It was lovely to have spent this moment with you.